So clearly, right, the two of you are able to every day bring your values to work, and that they coincide.
I would disagree with that.
Okay, well, you're a philosophy major, so I'm now,
Yeah. So that's actually one of the biggest misconceptions about our firm. It's not about us. We operate mostly as investment fiduciaries, which means that we are legally obligated to put our clients' interests ahead of our own. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes when people look at us, they go, "Oh, they have preconceptions. They assume what our client base looks like. They assume it's very homogenous, that all of our clients kind of look the same." And that's actually not true. There are a number of clients we work with who are, for instance, hunters, sports people, who would balk at some of the weapons screens that some of our other clients want to put on their portfolio. Some of our clients are very, very firm on not wanting to be their portfolios to be exposed to the makers of weapons of war. And some of our clients have a complete disagreement about that. They're hunters and fishermen. They are outdoorsy people, but they have common cause on conservation.
The borough of Metuchen, which is surrounded by the township of Edison, is a regional commercial hub for central New Jersey. According to a 2022 report from the financial information website WalletHub, New Jersey is the fourth most diverse state in the U.S. This is based upon 6 key categories: socioeconomic, cultural, economic, household, religious, and political diversity. In Metuchen resides Common Interests, one of the first financial services firms in the nation to earn the designation of B Corporation. While working with a diverse clientele, social and environmental responsibility lie at the core of their practice. Greetings. Welcome to another episode of Ripple on the Road. I'm Mike Shodroff. I'm the founder and CEO of the Ripple Center, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization who believes we have a kind of a crisis right now in capitalism. We have some broken systems, particularly as it pertains to human equity and dignity and environmental stewardship. Our mission is to mold, create, and promote businesses, organizations, and individuals that are making changes and disrupting these systems so that people and planet are in the same equation as profit. Which of course brings me here today to Metuchen, New Jersey, where I am in the office of Common Interests. I am with Bob Gellner, who is the founder of Common Interests, as well as a managing partner and financial advisor.
Yep.
And Max Mintz, who is a partner and financial planner for Common Interests.
Yes, indeed.
And, I appreciate you having me here today. And my first question is, why financial planning? What got you into, wanting to deal with people's money and help them attain certain goals?
Good question. I started in financial services as a life insurance salesperson, and moved up along that venue to the point where actually I became the leader of a fairly large organization. And I got the big office in the corner, and in 6 months I realized that I hated what I was doing. I had just had enough of it. The driving force was that life insurance is part of the deal, not the whole deal. And I really had a need to deal with people in terms of their total financial picture, not just the life insurance to make a commission, but to really help them get out of where they are financially. Our mantra as Common Interest is empowering financial wellness. And that's what we do, what I wanted to do, and that covers everything in their household that has a dollar sign attached. And so in 1994, I formed Common Interest with that name, a logo that has an eye and the world in it, and a slogan that says, "With an eye toward our future." So it all came together, and that's what we're doing now, better than we've ever done it.
Thanks, Mike. And before I start, just thanks for stopping by. It's great to have you in the office here today. We're really excited to do this. I'm not the guy you would have thought would have become a financial planner. You would not, if you looked at me when I was growing up and in college and school, you would have thought I would have gone into tech or something like that. My background, I went to an engineering high school, studied civil and mechanical engineering. While I was there, I discovered the world of philosophy because we didn't have electives in my high school. We took college courses at the local county college. And so I had the opportunity to do some ethics and some logic, and I discovered I really liked that stuff. So I went to Rutgers, and third best philosophy program in the world, I learned, and was very proud to graduate from there. I got really involved with an organization called Giving What We Can, a movement called effective altruism, which was looking at how much good do we really do with the money we give away, and how can we maximize that good? You know, sort of in that kind of like airy-fairy philosophy kind of way, thinking about like maximizing goods and things like that. But my family's financial advisor, this guy over here, introduced me to this idea of sustainable, responsible, and impact investing, or aligning our investments with our values and creating real measurable impact with certain investments. And I kind of got bitten by this bug. Effective altruists, some effective altruists take a pledge to give away 10% of their income. And I was thinking, well, that's great. And we should encourage people who want to do that and help them make effective donations. But what about the money we've saved for our own futures, for our other goals? What if that money could also be activated in a way that could create impact that's in line with what our clients want to see? There are all sorts of benefits we could get, both for people, planet, and profit, but also in terms of our own relationships with money. I've seen so many young people, especially, who are sort of disillusioned with the financial system. I mean, at the very top, you said the system is broken. People really have a solid understanding that the game is kind of rigged. And looking at impact investing, thinking about aligning our investments with our values, and really telling deep stories about the companies that we're invested in, and empowering our clients to make decisions about whether those companies and those businesses are okay for them to own, it changes the way people relate to their money, and it makes them more willing and more able to proceed with a financial plan and to execute a financial plan with confidence, because you know that both you're planning for your own goals, but you're also considering what we call externalities. These external forces, like the climate crisis, that impact our financial plans in a really, really, really serious way.
Absolutely. So Bob, let me ask. I mean, you said you began this in 1994. I mean, we were coming out of the greed is good decade.
Yeah.
Right? And here you have a mission, and in that mission statement, you say you are committed to financial wellness for your clients through a social, responsible manner.
Right.
What made you, again, back in, at that time, be able to look at the big picture and say, wait a second, there's got to be something more to just greed is good?
While I was still in the life insurance business, I ended up with a company in Washington, D.C. that also housed the Calvert Investment Group. And they were the pioneers in socially responsible investing. And they were in our home office. That was where I first picked up the scent of this theme. And the longer I talked with them, the more it got developed. And then the rest of the industry, the financial services industry, started to catch up and a lot of the names that we use now were developed back then. So I was kind of with the leading edge of this and grew into it with the rest of the world. The movement started to really have some power and some depth. And it became very evident that that's what I really wanted to be involved with, is financial wellness from the standpoint of the client and their monetary issues, and also making sure that what we invest in is doing the right thing for all of us.
Mm. So Max, you mentioned climate change, and now I don't think anybody bats an eye when you have a conversation about climate change. In the early 2000s, when I was in the classroom talking about global warming, it was new, and I was teaching it off of some of the research that had been done for decades before, but it wasn't mainstream. Now suddenly we find ourselves with impact work becoming way more common,
Right.
and thank goodness for that. That being said, because of that, we have a whole new language.
Yes, indeed.
Right? We have there's a million acronyms in finance,
Yes.
but now we have ESG, we have SRI, we have UN SDGs. Could you do me a favor for the people that aren't quite familiar? What do these acronyms mean, and how do you, from the perspective of a planner, screen and vet these potential investments that fall under these categories?
Absolutely. And before we get started, you guys have to know, this is going to delve right into that sort of alphabet soup of acronyms, right? You're really right. ESG, SRI, SDGs, it goes pretty deep. So let's unpack that a little bit. At the core of what we do is ESG analysis, or looking at environmental, social, and governance data points. And this has become a real buzzword in the industry. But I think, and we're also at an inflection point about this right now, where it's very important to understand what ESG analysis, environmental, social, and governance analysis, is really designed to achieve. Because there are a lot of allegations of greenwashing that we actually believe are true. But it's not an issue. The issue is really more about communication, about understanding what these strategies are designed to do. So many times when a client comes to us, they're looking at the impact of their investments on the planet. That's a sort of a very easy to understand approach where we want to make sure that we are first doing no harm, right? That sort of Hippocratic Oath idea. That's not actually what ESG is about. And I think a lot of the misconception or the misunderstanding where clients are invested in things that are not in line with their values when they think they are is rooted in this one issue. ESG analysis is about understanding the risks that things like climate change or social upheaval or governance issues have on companies, on their financial performance. This is a concept called financial materiality, or looking at, say, for a drinks company, right? How are they sourcing the water that they use to produce those drinks? Are those water sources at risk? Are they pulling water from the Colorado River, which is running out of water? Will those revenue streams for those companies be at risk in the future? Right? This is a very traditional kind of risk management that's done in financial services. And for investments that use that, I think that they will deliver better what we call risk-adjusted returns, or think about sort of taking less risk for the return you get. But that's really the objective. And I think many marketing firms, many companies that put out these investments, and many advisors kind of misunderstand this. They look at sustainable investments that are using ESG analysis, and then they're surprised to see oil companies in those portfolios. And that's not necessarily a bad product, one that contains those oil companies, but it might not be a good fit for the client and their values. And so the way we start is by doing due diligence on these fund managers, by asking them big, open-ended questions about what their process is designed to do. But then checking their work and making sure that we have access to data that allows us to tell stories about the business involvements. What are these companies doing? Are they paying fines? Are they messing up? Are they involved with things like investing in Russia or operations in Russia? Are they generating CO2 emissions that are disproportionately affecting historically underrepresented or overburdened communities? And we talk with our clients about designing portfolios, starting from that place of risk management, of ESG analysis, but then taking it a step further and looking at, under the hood, what's going on? And are you, as an investor, okay with the trade-offs we're making? It's a difficult conversation, and it's taken some serious time to build the tools to allow us to have these conversations, but we're really proud of what we've done. And Mike, I do need to add that no matter how much research we do, neither asset allocation nor diversification can eliminate the risk of fluctuating prices and uncertain returns. Investors should also be aware that anytime we're talking about performance, we're really discussing past performance, which does not guarantee and may not even be representative of future results. All investments will fluctuate in value, and all investing involves risk, including the loss of principal.
There's like a continuum. On this end, we've got a lot of people, especially now, they're coming to us because they know what we do, and they want to get involved with sustainable investing. Then on the other end, there's people that don't know that. And when we talk about that, we start the relationship with a questionnaire that tells us their values. And then we explain that the things that are important for them from a climate standpoint or a sustainable standpoint, we integrate their wishes that way with their investments. And they didn't know that that's possible. When we finally break through, they're amazed that I don't know we could do that. You mean we can actually be doing good for the planet and still make money doing it? And the answer is yes, and probably more, because the people we're invested in are paying attention, and they're going to last. They're going to be here for a long time. They're not going to be paying fines and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and I think you've recently put out this incredible report talking about common interests, and a couple things that stand out from what you just said. There's this perception, or there has been this perception that in order to make money, you have to invest in companies that their only goal is to make money. But I think you had a statistic by 2025, there's going to be $53 trillion invested in ESG related assets. And the other thing, and maybe you could talk about this, is you have something that states, a long-term investment is like casting a vote. Help explain that.
I like this concept of casting a vote a lot. And in order to really unpack it, we have to sort of go back to investing 101. What are the assets that we're talking about? When we build an investment portfolio, there's real estate and there's, commodities and there's all sorts of other things under the hood. But for the most part, people are talking about investing in stocks or bonds. And I think it's important to unpack those two concepts for a second. What is a stock? What is a bond? When you own a stock, you are owning a portion of that company. You become an owner of that company. And we believe that you have the right, we know we have the right, we believe you have the responsibility to use your voice in how that company is run. This is the power of what we call shareholder advocacy. And there's a spectrum, a continuum of investment strategies that starts with that ESG as risk management thing I was talking about earlier, moves into shareholder advocacy, using the power of our money as voice, raising our voices when we see injustice, and creating change in the world. There are some great stories on the environmental front about advocacy around palm oil. There's an organization that investors created called the Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil, where investment managers that we've partnered with have sat down with palm oil producers to get them to change their business practices, to stop strip clearing rainforests and move to more sustainable production methods. On the other end of that spectrum is using the profits from these investments to support community investments. We talked about stocks a little bit as ownership, but we also need to think about bonds and that portion of the portfolio. When you buy a bond, you're effectively lending your money to some entity to do something with it. And there are covenants, there are agreements within those bonds that govern how those proceeds can be used. So what we use in our portfolio is something called a use of proceeds test, where when we work with a bond manager, we want them to know what they own in their portfolios and what those companies are doing with that money. Oil companies are a great example. And this is a conversation we have with a lot of our clients. This is a very individual decision. And Bob and I view ourselves as facilitators of these conversations. Our job is to present information and empower our clients to decide if these investments fit their values or not. And let me give you a couple examples. Oil companies are in the energy business. And if they are wise enough, they will see that like the robber barons of the early 20th century, they were in the transportation business, not the rail business. And if these oil companies want to transition to a lower carbon business model, they issue green bonds. Now, you're still lending your money to an oil company, but some of the funds we work with allow these types of transitional investments that are designed to move companies in the right direction. Not all of our clients are okay with this. So there are funds that we swap out for clients to build portfolios that really are in line with their values. But some of our clients actively want to encourage companies to move in the right direction. And so there are different approaches one can take when we approach these conversations. Are you looking for a portfolio that's clean, however you define that? Or are you looking for a portfolio that we measure in the delta, the difference that we create?
So what I love about this is that, when your clients come, some of them who may be well versed in investing, some of them who have never done it before, you are also educators, right? You're educating individuals on not just these national and global companies and the impacts they have, but also, you're making a difference locally. And I believe, right, you're a no minimum firm.
Correct.
Right.
So what does that mean? How do you act as almost as a local impact organization to get more people into the marketplace and teach them besides just, helping them invest?
Well, that's an interesting question. And it has a strange answer at the beginning. People come to us because, or our clientele is like a continuum. We got the young people that Max is bringing in, and we got my people that are really old and
Vintage.
Vintage, yes.
Experience.
Yes.
Wise.
The older folks come to us because they're scared. They're really afraid that their money is not going to last. Or they realize that they have not a clue as to what they have and what's going to happen going forward. The younger people come to us now because of the ESG basis. And for both groups, we do a lot of educating and talking about the sustainable portion of the investments that we're doing. So they all kind of end up together, but it's the way they got there is different. We also talk about JEDI, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. That's part of the ESG. That's the societal part. Let's start being nice with each other instead of not nice. So it's a combination that starts to be magnetic once you catch the drift. And and the enthusiasm that our clients express is really worthwhile, and it's genuine.
We talked a lot about the environmental impacts of your investments and some of the things that happen here. What about the social stuff? You know, how does common interests, through investments or just as your company, assist with under-resourced, underrepresented, underserved communities?
Well, that's part of the no minimum. We want to help people that need our help, and we don't need to go find millionaires to do that. If an example is, we actually do resume work for clients that are employed or just lost a job or want to move forward. We'll help them with a resume. We'll help them with their cover letter, and we don't charge for that. They need that, and we can offer it. Another one of our mantras is, give us a call. We listen good. Our clients turn out to be our extended family. We send them all a birthday card on their birthday from Heifer International as a donation. We really care about who they are, what they are, how they do things, and our collective futures. And there's no bottom, there's no top. It's just us doing what we think is right for our people.
And I think that is the place that we started, is acknowledging who we are. Bob and I are the two planners here. We have two support staff, which means we only have so much capacity. And so we've been trying to figure out ways that we can fulfill these social missions that we've set for ourselves without breaking our firm. What we realized was we can work at scale. We can partner with local organizations to build trust in communities that are historically not well served by financial services and that don't have a lot of trust. So we've been partnering with local churches that work to offer seminars at no cost to their parishioners, to their flock, to build financial literacy skills. That was one good thing that we were doing sort of before the pandemic. The pandemic kind of threw everything for a loop with that, and we sort of did some webinars and some other work there. But we also sort of had to slow down on those initiatives. However, one thing we also realized is that as a firm, we occupy a very privileged position. We are a mature firm, small but mature, that has the ability to create a pathway into financial services to help solve some of the what we call the pale, stale mail problem in the business. We, as a firm, are not going to be able to serve everybody, but we can use our firm to create opportunities that would not otherwise exist. So what we did was we partnered with other firms who share our passion. And here I'll betray the fact that I have a degree in philosophy again. But when I was in school, I took a course on egalitarianism, on equality, and on what we value. And when you start having these conversations, everybody goes right to like putting weights on extraordinary people to bring them down to everybody else's level. And that's not what we're trying to do. What we're really trying to do is to create equal access to advantages. And so we looked for opportunities to use our firm to give the advantages that we grew up with in our networks, in our in where we live, to historically underserved and underrepresented communities. So through this partnership, we've created something that we call the Wall Street Diversity Accelerator Program, which is an internship program taking qualified applicants, recruiting primarily from historically black colleges and universities, to do 6-week paid internships in our firm and others. We use what small voice we have in the industry to encourage other firms to join this and to take on interns. And we've now had, I think, 3 interns come through.
Yes.
And they have all gone on. Well, some of them are still in school,
Yeah.
obviously. But the ones that have graduated are on the path to entering a financial services career. And I don't think they would be otherwise.
Right.
We've also become part of their support network. They can come to us for referral letters, which they wouldn't otherwise necessarily be able to get from somebody in our position. And we can speak to who they are, to what they've done. They also write blog posts to get writing experience. They build a portfolio of work and they have projects that they run within our business to both help our business and help them build skills. So that's one of the things we're probably most proud of, just in terms of how we're using our business to create change in the world.
Yeah, it's good. And these are young ladies that are badly needed in our industry. As Max, excuse me, as Max said, they all look like me in our industry. So we need this influx of intelligence and youth to continue, and these young ladies have each turned out to be really spectacular in that regard.
That's great. Well, speaking of a diverse group, the United Nations. I know that your firm has an interesting relationship, right, with the UN and not just the Sustainable Development Goals, but some of the things you've done with the UN. Are you permitted to talk about that?
Yeah, Common Interest is a signatory of an organization called the United Nations Principles for Responsible Investment, which is a collaboration between asset managers, asset owners, and service providers like us. Common Interest doesn't have our own proprietary investment funds or anything like that. So we're in a different category than like Vanguard and BlackRock and these companies. But we do have a seat at the table with them. And we're able to participate in conversations about the sort of global agenda around sustainability. It's an organization of investment managers, all of whom have committed to incorporating the Sustainable Development Goals into our investment process. In fact, we've been working to launch sort of SDG alignment tools to allow our clients to see how their investments are aligned with the SDGs. But it's also a collaboration platform to enable us to work with other investment groups to put that kind of pressure on companies that we were talking about earlier. There's a great story about this in our impact report, which has to do with actually social media companies. About 6 years ago, I think, there was a big shooting in Christchurch, New Zealand, that was live streamed on Facebook. And we as investors had this sort of awakening after that event. Where it was like, wait a minute, Facebook was at the time part of some of our portfolios. And we as owners, we feel this responsibility to work with the companies we own to create change in their policies. And we just saw this incredible act of violence streamed on their platform. So the pension fund of New Zealand, the New Zealand Super Fund, went on the PRI's collaboration platform and put out a call for investors to join an engagement, to collaborate at first with Facebook, but then it expanded to the other social media companies, Twitter and Snapchat and all the rest of them, to build content moderation policies to prevent the streaming of violent acts. And this was just, maybe 2014, 2015 kind of time frame, before a lot of this stuff had really entered the public's eye. And because we had started this before the sort of media firestorm that occurred afterwards, we were already there. The engagement was already started and already working with these companies, so that when they saw public pressure coming down on them, they already had a group of investors that they were working with, that they were already in dialogue with. And so this engagement kind of ballooned in scope as we got more sort of engagement from the companies we were working with. And Common Interest was involved to provide feedback on the ground from what we're seeing from our clients. Because the New Zealand Pension Fund, while they have more resources than we do, isn't as plugged in to the people on the ground. We work with what they call retail consumers, regular people. And so we were able to provide guidance on what our clients really care about and influence the course of these engagements. I'd invite you to read our impact report for more details on that.
So clearly, right, the two of you are able to every day bring your values to work, and that they
I would disagree with that.
Okay, well, you're a philosophy major, so now
So that's actually one of the biggest misconceptions about our firm. It's not about us. We operate mostly as investment fiduciaries, which means that we are legally obligated to put our clients' interests ahead of our own. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes when people look at us, they go, "Oh, they have preconceptions. They assume what our client base looks like. They assume it's very homogenous, that all of our clients kind of look the same." And that's actually not true. There are a number of clients we work with who are, for instance, hunters, sports people, who would balk at some of the weapons screens that some of our other clients want to put on their portfolio. Some of our clients are very, very firm on not wanting to be their portfolios to be exposed to the makers of weapons of war. And some of our clients have a complete disagreement about that. They're hunters and fishermen. They are outdoorsy people, but they have common cause on conservation. They understand preservation of open space for, game. They understand living in balance with nature to maintain populations of the animals that they want to hunt. And we do really serve a much wider audience than one would initially expect. So the reason I take issue with what you said, and I get where you were coming from, I really do, is that it's about facilitating our clients' values, not imposing our own set of values.
Yeah, well put.
Very well put.
Yeah.
I stand corrected, Max. Thank
Oh.
you.
I mean, and I think one thing that some people might be surprised at is that we offer a set of religious portfolios as well. We believe that all people deserve the dignity and the choice to align their investments with whatever their values are.
That's great. So as we sum this up, I have a question for you. What do you feel is an impact that you've had doing this work that you're really proud of and you're really excited to maybe have facilitated some change or disrupting an old system?
Oh, I can tell a couple stories. One of them, which is from yesterday. Yesterday, we had a meeting with a client who devoted her work to public service. She's a doctor. She went to medical school, took out a ton of loans to make that happen, and worked at nonprofit hospitals her whole career. Just yesterday, we got the news that we'd been able to get her student loans completely forgiven. It was a multi-year process because her loans were the wrong type, and we were working on it for a long time and doing consolidations and making sure that she had all the boxes checked. And so when the public service loan forgiveness waivers came out during COVID, we had everything ready to go, and we were able to get her loans forgiven. That was one of our biggest sort of personal stories, because our work is on both the ultra-personal side, working one-on-one with clients, and on the systems level. And on that level, I think I'd like to talk about an investment we worked on a couple years ago. This offering is now closed, so it's not open to new investors, although there is a version of it that's open at the moment and could be open in the future, but no guarantees, for wealthier investors. It involved planting trees with a company called World Tree. And it's one of the best examples of this kind of social impact and environmental impact investing. Because at its core, we were planting trees. It's the world's fastest growing hardwood, a species called Paulownia. It grows from seedling to full maturity in about 8 to 10 years. And then you got to harvest the trees, cut them down for lumber, dry them. So the whole investment offering is more like 10 to 12 years for our clients. So long-term investments, right? But the way the deal was structured is one of the best examples I have of what can be done in this sort of win-win-win kind of way. because we needed land to plant these trees. And I want to be very careful, very clear here. This is not a reforestation thing. This was tree farming. But the idea was to capture a truly staggering amount of carbon in these trees and sequester it in furniture, in decks, in molding, crown molding for people and in their homes. What we did was we worked with this company World Tree to build an investment where we would partner with small independent farmers, both here in the US, but also in South and Central America. These trees will grow in very inhospitable environments. So we're talking like, farmland that's been depleted of its nutrients by traditional farming methods, just like really extractive stuff. Put these trees in the ground, and there are a whole bunch of benefits. Their leaves return nitrogen to the soil, which can actually, which is one of the main things that's depleted by traditional farming. So it can regenerate the soil. We gave the farmers the trees for free, and they committed to put a decade's worth of sweat equity into the deal. They're tending to the trees, they're caring for them, they're reporting back to the manager on growth. Everything is satellite tracked and tagged. And through that, we're able to understand how much carbon we're capturing. At the end of the deal, after the trees are cut down, they regenerate from the stump for 6 more growing cycles. And those trees are fully owned by those farmers, helping them build generational wealth and keep their land. We also split the profits, if any exist, from the sale of the lumber, 50% to those farmers, with the other 50% being split between our investors and the management company. So here what we've been able to do is we've been able to harness the power of capital to create a real environmental impact. Each one of our clients received an impact statement, an impact report, just on that investment that talked about how much carbon we expect to be captured as a result of their investment, just over that first growing cycle, because we don't want to go further out than that because there's so much uncertainty. But we can talk realistically about that first growing cycle, to talk about how those farmers have been supported, how many farmers were supported as a result of their investment. And also a couple incidental things like, farmers can have a little extra revenue from honey because there are some really beautiful flowers involved in this, and then they produce nectar and things like that. But we're looking for a financial return that's market rate. We're looking for social impact through farmer support. And again, here at home in the US, primarily in the South, because the trees grow in growing zones sort of like 7 through 11, which is sort of like Georgia South, but also in South and Central America. We've got the environmental side, we've got the social side, and we've got the financial return, hopefully.
And one of my favorite images is with the older folks that come to us because they're scared to death about their money. As we talk, I take notes, and they describe that they have this account and that account and such, but they've never really put it together. So that there's a Wells Fargo over here and there's a Vanguard over here, but never the twain shall meet, so to speak. And as I take the notes and they talk to me, ultimately I will add all the numbers up and turn the paper to them and just watch their face. We have an ongoing situation now of a couple like that. They thought that they were going to be destitute in about 2 years. That they thought they were going to have no money for anything other than Social Security or whatever for their later years. And as I turn the paper around and put it so they can see it, I love to watch their faces. They first, what? That's not right. I said, yep, it is right. And in this case, they how many?
Ended up having about $1.2 million in assets. But think about what that does to a family. Think about, and this is where I feel like we deliver value to our clients. If the parents, if the grandparents are the oldest generation, has this like scarcity mentality, if they're unwilling to spend money, then they will transfer that wealth to the next generation when the next generation doesn't necessarily care about the wealth. They care about the time and the experience that they could have with their family members. And so I think one of the biggest, most important conversations we have with people is about making sure that we're doing legacy planning. Obviously, that's important for what we do, that, you know, transferring wealth between generations in a smart way, but also planning what to do, what quality of life we can have. I've had this conversation maybe a half a dozen times in the last 2 weeks alone. We've been working with a family that's inheriting wealth at the moment and dealing with their emotions about that wealth transfer, because they see this as a stewardship exercise. They're looking at like, how do I care for this money that my father saved over the course of his life? And how do I then transfer it onto the next generation? And when we start with the financial plan and I say, wait, you are not spending enough money. Why have you budgeted so little for travel? Why have you budgeted so little for time with your family? Wouldn't you like to think about allocating some resources, but also some time to building experiences? And this is where we step outside of the world of money management and into the world of our relationships with money, about the spirituality of money, the psychology of money, and how we build these kind of cycles within families that perpetuate themselves down through generations. And if we don't examine them, if we don't unpack them, if we don't spend some time thinking about these scripts we have in our heads about money, then they can cause damage to the next generation, to our relationships with our kids, and facilitating those conversations, asking the kids what they want, and talking to the parents about, hey, there's a disconnect here between what you're saying and your relationship with your wealth and what your kids value. You're speaking past each other. When we can close that gap, when we can bring people together for conversations, we can actually bring families closer together. And that, for me, is sort of our highest and best use.
We talk about financial social workers. Yeah, a lot of that financial social work is really well received, and it takes some maneuvering and massaging to get them to accept what we're saying. But when the lights start to go on, we can tell that there's a whole release of tension when we start really massaging their finances for them and their heirs.
Well, on that note, I don't want to keep your clients waiting any longer because you've given me so much time. You've been gracious with that. And, thank you for demonstrating the fact that ethics, sustainability, and capitalism can indeed coexist.
I think they can.
So Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Max.
Mike, thank you for being with us.
Keep up all the great work and, keeping your clients doing the right thing.
And the same to you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, all right.